Hi guys. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for all the suggestions for videos you have been sending me. You've been leaving comments on my blog, and I appreciate it so much because those help me a lot to know, what you want to learn, what you want to see in the future. So keep them coming. I appreciate it. As for today, I thought while I was making my cards this morning for today's blog post, I got to thinking that it might be kind of fun to show you how I make the little ruffly, poofy flowers with buttons in the centers. So I put together a little tutorial video for you, and I hope that you find it helpful. Are you ready? Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do to make these little ruffly button flowers, basically this is what we're going to make. The first thing we want to do is take some punched out scallop circles. I went to a thrift store and bought a big thick book of children's stories, kind of like for older children, like David Copperfield, Swiss Family Robinson, that type of thing. So it's a big thick book with lots of pages, and I specifically went through all the books at the thrift store trying to find one that had just the right color of sort of a creamy paper, and I wanted to be sure and make sure that the stories were something appropriate, that, you know, so I wouldn't end up with a flower with a big cuss word across the flower or something like that. So you kind of have to be careful what book you pick out for this project, for any of these projects that you're going to use just vintage book print on. But that's where I got it. I literally paid 99 cents for this big thick book, and I've got enough vintage book print paper to use on my projects for ages. So I've taken a scalloped circle punch. This one is a Paper Shapers punch. I got it from Stampin' Up. And I'm going to use 5 punched out circles. I'm going to stack them up. They don't need to line up. In fact, I think I like it better if all the scallops don't line up. This is a paper piercing mat, and I've got my paper piercer. Just going to poke a hole right in the center, make sure I shove it all the way through, and then I'm going to use one of these antique copper mini circle brads from Making Memories. This happens to be my favorite color of their brads, that great sort of chocolate brown. In this case, the color of the brad is totally irrelevant. You're not even going to see it when we're finished. So go ahead and poke the brad through, flatten out the prongs. Then I'm going to take the top layer and mush it all up. Take the second layer, mush it around the first one. And the same with the third and the fourth layers. So I'm going to leave the 5th layer flat because that's going to serve as our basic flower shape. You may recall on my blog, I first saw the idea similar to this, minus the button part, on Wendy Smedley's blog. She did a great tutorial on how to use these to make flowers on a stick that you could then use like so in a flower arrangement. It was really, really cute. A paper flower arrangement. Okay, so now that I've got 4 of the 5 layers rumpled up, I'm going to go ahead and spread them back out a little bit so that I can see that brad again. And I'm going to go through my buttons here and find any button. I happen to be using Berry Sorbet buttons from Paper Tray Ink. This is literally one bag of buttons, and that may only be 2/3 of the bag because I've used lots of buttons out of here. So you get a ton of buttons for, I think, $5 from Paper Tray. It's one of my favorite embellishments to use because you get a ton of them and they're so affordable. Okay, so I went up through one hole. I'm going to just show you a quick little trick here. Since this is a button with 4 holes, go up through one hole and down through the opposite corner, then come back up through one of the other ones. And then instead of going back down, grab the long end and come up. And that way, now you're going to make a little crisscross, and you've got both tails up on the top of the button so you can tie a little knot or a bow, whatever you prefer. Knots are easier, so that's what I'm going to go with. Then I'm going to use my ribbon scissors These never cut paper ever, so they stay nice and sharp. Cut those ends off, and I'm going to take, this is just some foam adhesive. I think maybe this is from 3M. I'm just going to cut off a piece with my paper cutter scissors. Put this on the back of my button, and we're gonna mush this right down on top of that brad, and because it's foam it'll kind of mush in around the brad and adhere to the paper too. So get your button in the center, give it a good mush, and then take those layers that you already rumpled and rumple them up again. And this time you might want to kind of shove a few of them sort of under the button a little bit, under the, maybe under some of the back layers to give it a little poof. It's very random, but the end result is usually pretty cute. And I want to get all of those layers, except for the back one, good and sort of rumpled, so that you get a cute little flower shape. And there you have it. Rumpled, ruffly flower with a button center.